we will, we'll go there. If we have time, because I know it's an hour, so we'll see how much time we can actually help what we can do. Okay, so okay. I'll just do a little intro. Welcome to this session of Africa Communication. Oh, okay, good. Okay, we're recording now. Okay. So welcome everyone to this session of Africa Communications Week. This session is The Power of PR, Advancing African Entertainment to the World. This is a topic that I'm really excited about. I'm very passionate about PR, communications, marketing, and especially to be used as a tool for empowerment, especially for Africa, for Africans to change, to be in control of our own narrative. I think that's really important. And for artists and the entertainment industry, which as we know, African entertainment is just blowing up globally. I mean, I feel like we're at the very beginning stages of where it's ultimately going to be. But I feel, and I'm going to get your opinion when we talk to you guys, I feel like the artists, whether it's music artists, filmmakers, designers, the whole creative and entertainment industry, are not fully and effectively taking advantage of many of the opportunities that may be there because they don't understand how to harness this tool that we all know and love, which is PR. So I want to get into that, and then we can talk a little bit about what people should be doing, how we in the communications industry can, help to support that. And then, we want to be a solutions driven. So we'll talk a little bit about that. So Sheila, we will start with you. Okay. Sheila Afari, she is a media and PR entrepreneur. She has, she's got a whole Sheila Afari essay group. So I think that the media and the PR is just one aspect of what she does. And, so that'll be our focus today. We'll have to talk about some of those other businesses you have, Sheila, on another day, right? So in South Africa, I think, definitely we're talking about Africa. It's more evolved in terms of the industry. There are many of the big record labels that have offices there, and it operates a little bit more, how it does in the West versus I'm based in Ghana, in the West coast of Africa. It's kind of a little crazy how the industry is working. So Sheila, I want you to talk to us a little bit about what the relationship is between artists and PR in the market that you work in.
Cool. Hi, everyone. I think having been in the PR space in South Africa for the past 10 years, I've definitely seen kind of growth in the industry in terms of more people being aware of, there's something called a publicist or a PR agency or a PR, department within a label. It's almost become like a buzzword. And I think, to its detriment, people who can't necessarily outsource that service forgets that as an individual artist or as an, independent record label, you can still do your own PR services. So we definitely see more artists now and having their own publicists, having their own PR people pitching them. But it's like the newcomers who don't have the extra support are not necessarily breaking through because, they're not using the tools available to them. And I think when I started, social media, existed, but wasn't where it is today. And I think, artists who aren't capitalizing online, are really kind of missing an aspect of, what they can do with their brands. So in SA, I think, we have a lot of media platforms, but in the same breath, they're limited. So if your music isn't mainstream to get on radio, our online blog platforms are limited. If you think, within the hip hop space, you probably count platforms that are, niche hip hop on one hand. If you're, a folk artist or gospel, our platforms are really limited. So what I like to do is, not just look at music platforms, but how do you speak to broader media audiences? And I think that's something that many people, don't look to in the market. So you'll find that, in a certain space or in a certain group online or community, they might know an artist, but the bulk of the country would have never heard of that artist. So I think, we're definitely in a space where artists need to start thinking bigger. And I would even argue, even beyond our borders in SA. I think now beyond, more than ever, we really can see that we're living in a borderless world. And I think, artists now have real life examples of African acts who are dominating globally. And I hope that, inspires people to realize that doesn't matter, where you're located, what you're doing in your physical space, your music can transcend. And the beauty with music is, even if people don't understand what you're saying, the beat, the rhythm, people can catch onto something. So I think we definitely, I would say, a market that's, let's say thriving, but I'd use the word thriving in terms of the growth I've seen over the past 10 years. I didn't get that. Could you try again? Definitely the growth over the past 10 years, but we're not quite where we need to be. I think we're definitely not utilizing the tools at hand. And I think a lot of artists maybe just need those kind of step by step, what can I do by myself? Because most people literally, I think, energy is spent knocking on how do I get signed by a record label, and not necessarily how do I put myself out to be actually noticed by a label. You're on mute.
Okay, thanks. I find that, a lot of people don't really understand like what PR is and, how do you, put together a strategy. So when a label or an artist comes to you, how do you start that whole process? What's like your approach to putting their strategy together? Do you mainly work in South Africa? Is it Pan-African? Do you do things internationally? Like, how do you put together, that strategy?
I think we'll come at different, life stages of a campaign. I think the more established clients who have been in the industry a lot longer or have, major labels, attached to them, they understand the process of don't just come today and releasing a song tomorrow. They understand lead time and how lead time can aid to the success of a campaign. So generally with those clients, we might be briefed even maybe 3 months ahead of time to say, okay, there's this single, this album coming out. We need a rollout plan. The artist is going to be touring. The artist will be in these countries, and we kind of map in that way. Then we might have some artists coming on a Monday and saying, okay, on Friday we're dropping. So it varies. But I think over the years, I've tried to sift out the clients that come in, last minute. Just generally those clients who come in last minute don't understand the whole kind of ecosystem of, how do you really build a successful campaign? So they come with all these expectations that lie on PR, whereas there's so many aspects to a campaign that, PR is meant to amplify, not just carry. But let me start with someone who comes in 3 months in advance. So we know that, okay, X artist is dropping an album in 3 months' time. There'll be 2 or 3 kind of pre-ad singles along the way. The artist is available to do maybe virtual interviews if they're not necessarily based in the country, or they'll want to wait for the album to actually drop before they do most of their main interviews. So we'll kind of put together a hit list to say, okay, where in this artist's career are they? If they are a new artist, then for me, no platform is too small. No platform is too small to big. So if we believe, there is a relevant audience match alignment there, then they're on the list. So magazines, newspapers, online platforms, radio, TV, we go for it. If they're more established, generally they're more busy, so they won't be doing every interview. So then we'll hit kind of your top tier 1 platforms. So your radio stations with the biggest audience reach, your newspapers with the biggest audience reach, and just kind of finding 1 or 2 platforms within maybe each, media category that works with that artist. And generally, if an artist is quite well known, lots of people do want to interview the artist. So if we're able to go to them in advance, they might be able to get, the 1 hour slot, or, be able to do an unplugged performance session, or, pre-record in advance because maybe the artist is very busy and they'll kind of have that material and bank it for when it's time to release. We'll prepare press releases ahead of time that can be signed off by different parties to make sure that everyone's happy with the communication that's going out. And that's generally tied into a broader theme around the album. So there's a bit of kind of pieces in play that go into making sure that come release day, there's a lot of things happening. Those things don't just happen overnight. Whether it's a shorter lead time, it really means kind of you on the go. And generally then when I'm looking at, bigger picture kind of themes in terms of, what's coming down the line is the immediate, oh, there's a single noun, this is what's happening, so-and-so is featured, or they use this producer, or the shot here, or, the song means what, XYZ. Just kind of tie it in there. Our first point is always music platforms, but I like to kind of, look outside of that because, an artist is multifaceted. Any person, actually, if you take someone off the street, I believe there's always a story there. So some people have a fashion angle, some people have a beauty angle, some people have a philanthropic angle, so it's always something else to kind of, carry on the conversation. A lot of musicians these days are also business owners or entrepreneurs. So once you've kind of exhausted the music conversation, but you want to keep reminding people that, oh, there's a new single, there's a new album, then we kind of see, what other platforms can we, get the artists featured that can, broaden the conversation around their music or the album that they're pushing.
Talk to us a little bit about some success stories that you have. I mean, you've worked with some of the biggest artists in African music and probably entertainment. Talk to us about a few success stories. We know on a recent podcast, I heard this former publicist of Def Jam talk about the first time that she got Jay-Z on Saturday Night Live, and it literally took her like 3 to 6 months to make that happen, right? So as publicists, we all know that is like so huge. Talk to us a little bit about some major successes that you've got and which artists were they?
Cool. So it's really been an interesting journey. I think for me, I really enjoyed campaigns where we started with a brand new artist and kind of, journeyed with them to, getting awards and like Song of the Year and those kind of stories. I think, as you kind of, build on those journeys, people then, when someone becomes a household name, it's almost like you forget that someone started off somewhere. So often people come and they just see in terms of, oh, we only work with, the big major A-list artists, but there's so many artists we work with that are on the ground building. And for me, those are the true success stories versus getting someone who's already kind of, achieved so much and we're kind of supplementing their campaigns. I think when I started, I think my very first client my very first music client at the time was AKA. And he was just releasing his single called Jealousy off his Levels album. And from the campaign we did with him, that kind of got me a lot more, music clients, because they were like, oh, okay, we can really see different kind of energy brought to this campaign. I then got referrals to, Kuli Chana, and we did a run with him. And he then went on to win, Record of the Year and Album of the Year, kind of being the first hip hop artist to do that at the time in the country. And just kind of, built there to be like, oh, wow, hip hop can actually be, a mainstream, genre in the country that is getting, press that ordinarily a lot of artists wouldn't get. So for me, I wasn't just looking at your hip hop platforms. I was like, okay, there's lots of different angles to my clients. How do I get them, on publications that, business people are reading? How do I get them publications that fashion people are reading? So I think for me, it was one of those where I was able to kind of look beyond, this is just a music artist, but, people in that space, would see them on like a morning live or morning TV where you wouldn't ordinarily see a hip hop artist there. So for me, I think those kind of stories where it was like you kind of broke boundaries and say, we don't need to think of, artists in kind of, unilaterally or within a box, in the media landscape. And I think in the past 2 or 3 years, I would say maybe Ami Faku, she signed to Fit Season, and they did a wonderful job, with her. And I think for me, as a publicist or owning a PR agency, It's really how do you support labels and their journey of how they're breaking artists. So I know a lot of groundwork that was done there, kind of just testing the music and things like that, and being able to work with the artist from ground one, being like, okay, yes, today is her day one, but we have this vision for her, and we're going to place her, as the artist to watch, the artist to take note of. And I think, when you really come in strong and position an artist a certain way, you're able to kind of, build a narrative quicker and faster and get people to take notice. And, no stone was left, unturned. We'll make sure we got her kind of, your prime, tier one media. And for me, those are stories that will, outlive artists, where, you get like lots of front page newspaper articles, prime, TV placements. And those things kind of show that, doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, what genre you're from, if the PR job is done right, you'll definitely get noticed. You're on mute.
Sorry, I think my button is sticking. Sorry about that. Thank you. Thanks, Sheila. We're going to come back to you in a little while because I'm going to ask everyone like one final question. But so we're going to move to, thank you so much. That was just a lot of great information. Hopefully artists are joining in to take notes as well. Richard Dean, hey, how are you?
Hey, I'm great.
Where are you tuning in today from?
Right now I'm in New York City.
Okay, all right, cool. So Richard Dean is the CEO of Grunge Cake, which has been a staple indie music platform for many, many years. She's a writer, entrepreneur, and has just really been a huge advocate and flag bearer for many African artists crossing over into the US market. So welcome, Richard Dean. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. So I think, hitting the US market is a goal and a dream for many artists. I think that, people are realizing that they don't have to, they can still be successful maybe in their own countries or their own continents, but at the end of the day, that is like the pinnacle of the music industry, the media industry. So artists want to get in, and you're one of those people that they talk to. Talk to us a little bit about, like sort of your journey and how you got to that place, and maybe some of the artists that you've recently worked with.
Yeah, first and foremost, thank you for the platform. I just wanted to say that to you, and I've known you for a very long time, like when I was working with Susie Analog.
Yes.
Who was a fantastic Black woman in the music space. And so, yeah, I just wanted to start off by saying that. So we go way back.
Yes, that's right. That's right. So every time I see your name somewhere, I'm like, girl, that's right. You're doing it.
Yes. And as far as African talent or just talent from around the globe, I find myself being like a translator to help them understand how it works here, because it's very different, like different like business practices around the world. Like some things could be fast tracked, and other things you have to wait for, like how you mentioned Jay-Z, 3 to 6 months to get on that show. Like I think a lot of the times there's teaching the artists and their teams that aren't from here, like, okay, this is how it goes here. We have to respect those standards and those things. But with the artists that have allowed me to do my job and trusted me and understand the expertise and know that I know what I'm talking about, we've been able to make the biggest things, or a lot of first things, right? Because the platforms here, I would say about even 5 years ago, maybe even before, and in the midst of the pandemic, like platforms here, media outlets here, they may have liked the music or they may have liked the beat, but they didn't fully understand what it was. And I feel like they still don't really understand what it is. But I've been doing a lot of that work to make it make sense. So the doors in this house are screeching. They need some oil. Yeah, but it's been, I specifically today actually for Africa Day, Pandora, they actually interviewed Oxlade and had him do like a performance. So that's supposed to go live also. There's also going to be other parts of the rollout. I'm not sure if I could share it yet, but when I am able to, you guys will see that on social media. I've gotten a lot of artists like from Ghana, Nigeria. Now I'm working with Focalistic out of South Africa, which is really exciting. He's the first artist that I've been able to work with in this capacity from South Africa. So I'm really excited. Another artist from Egypt reached out to me. They're like, oh, you're doing a lot in West Africa. Don't forget other parts of Africa.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So it's been stuff like that. I mean, in Nigeria, I've been able to work with like Wanda Banton. Who else has reached out? So let me explain also, like, if I'm not doing like PR for those artists, I may be working with the Recording Academy to help them get content. So it's been everyone from like Fino. I've had Sako Dia do an interview with them as well. Oxlade did a performance. Lakon did a performance. We actually have an interview coming up with Kitty out of Ghana, Jackie. We've also reached out to Yemi's team and Ira Star and Tiwa Savage. So, but yeah, like, so I've become this person that goes between media and the artists, and then the artists and media, just to make sure that things are happening more so for like the culture and to bring the representation the best way, that we need to be seen, and making sure that everybody is professional and punctual. And, especially if this is something that they want, like, to show up for it and do your part. That's the thing. I've been dealing with a lot of like global stars, and in their own right, they're superstars where they're from. But it's like when you come into a new territory, you got to like humble yourself, right? And still do the work. So it's a lot of that. It's a lot of give and take. But it's very beautiful. I wouldn't trade it for the world. Like, all of the guys and girls that I've been able to work with, like, I'm super honored and blessed that they chose me. And I just want to continue to bring the US some great music and great talent.
Thank you. Yeah, you talked about people who may be big stars in their home countries, and it's a new market, right? So what happens? Walk us through the process when you say they got to learn to do the work. What is that work? I think that's the missing piece. Like, I want people to understand this is what it takes. This is, how it happens, right? I think that from what I see, artists here, I mean, as I said, in Ghana, and I know Ghana is very similar to probably most other markets in Africa. They, as we just mentioned, like, someone is on a cover of a magazine. I think people don't know that there was someone who made that happen. You don't just magically appear on a TV morning news show. It doesn't magically happen, because funny enough, it happens like that here, right?
Yeah,
they just know somebody, they just call somebody up, they just hit somebody up, and they're like on a cover, and they're on, morning show, and then they kind of can expect that it might happen like that. So, what is that process like? What happens, there in the media space?
Okay, so I have a good relationship with Empire. So for instance, right, if we are rolling out a single and I send it to the DJs and my network, if they want drops, right, they'll send scripts, and then they expect to get those drops so they can play the record, right, and add it into rotation. If we're taking 2 to 3 months to get back to the people, then it's like, why did you hire me if you weren't ready? So it's things like that. Or if it's like, okay, we also have to remember that like the American market is not just the people from Africa that's reaching out, like it's the entire world, right? And so we're in queue, we have to wait our turn, and that's just what it is. Like, there's really no amount of money that's going to fast track anything for you to get there. Like, it's a whole different system. Like, and if somebody is telling you that, oh, you can pay me to get to the top of the line, they probably played you. So, like, it's like that. We actually have order and structure. And I think that's why different people from around the world that are creating their music industries, like they look up to the US to try to like build that structure. So it's those things. It's like, you know, show up on time, or if you have an interview with a radio station, like make the interview, like come to the interview, be prepared, don't stand people up, because you are like the front line of Africa. Like they may have never even talked to a person that is based in Africa. So they are excited because of what I said to them, or what a publicist said to them, and are you know, pitching you and making these people excited. And then so when you don't show up, it's kind of like, okay, you know, what was that? And it will leave a bad taste in people's mouths. And then what happens there is that it's not just about you, it's about everybody else that's behind you. And once you taint that image, it's detrimental to what we're trying to do. Like, so there's that. And I think because the new artists, they're considered new artists here, right? Like they may be big back home, but here you're a new artist until you're able to turn over that conversion rate of how many people are like buying into your music, and then you become like an A-list or like a top tier mainstream artist. Even if you're signed to a label that has an American component or like American division, you still are a new artist. So I think the perception and people really actualizing where they are, that needs to happen first before you take on anyone and they expect all of these things. Like, yeah, you may have millions of followers in Nigeria, but like, you know, like you gotta, when you're here and you're starting here, you one at a time, one fan at a time. And that starts with the interviews, that starts with people seeing you often, that starts with people hearing your voice and having your voice on radio and hearing how you say your name for them to understand. I could get into pronunciation, like that's a whole other panel, but yes, like those are the things that people need to understand and know.
Okay, I'm here. Here I am. Okay.
Now.
You spoke a little bit about, you know, the importance of time. You know, what other elements should you know, African artists start to think about when they're trying to enter these global markets? You know, I find here in Ghana, there are people who don't know what a press kit is. When I'm going to pitch them for, you know, clients, I have to go to Wikipedia to get their bio, like, you know what I mean? Talk to us, and Sheila, I want to talk to you about this too. Like, what do people need to, I mean, I know this is like so basic one-on-one, guys, but this is where we are, okay? And I want, like, I don't, because I keep wondering, like, why don't people know? I'm not gonna wonder, I'm just assuming that they don't know. And it's our job to like break it down and get them prepared, because it can't go on like this anymore.
Yeah.
So talk to us. So talk to me a little bit about elements, and then Sheila, I want you to, you know, share as well.
Oh, well, I mean, yes, those things like press images, right? I think when they think about press images, they're not thinking that they're also competing with the way that they look. Like the image needs to be up to par, like that. The image tells a story also. And if it's not the right image, you're just, there's nothing that I can do, right? Like, so it's a team effort. Like, it's not just you pass whatever on to me and then I create the magic. That's not what it is. Like, you have to give us the pieces to be like, okay, yes, this is this person and this is why they're great. And they are looking at the things that we sent to them and they can see the greatness. Like, so it has to start with you. We can't take your pictures for you, you know, like then a bio. I find that a lot of talent, especially from West Africa, I will say, like, we don't know too much about you. Like, and then we don't have the time to always go and dig or talk to you on the phone and like figure those things out and write them down. It has to come from you. Like, yes, it's cool that you're from Accra, but what else went on? Like, who's your family? Like, where are you from? What tribe are you from? Like, why do you make the music that you make? Why is this song in 3 parts Twi? Like, why is it not in full English? Like, what does it mean for you to sing as a person with multi languages. Like, can we talk about that? Like, when I think about Burna Boy and what he's actually doing with his music and how many different like languages and like cultures he's mixing, like it's amazing. And I would love to see him speak about that. Like, how do you arrive there? But we don't have those things. So we're just literally what we're doing, the music fans, we're just hearing the songs and that's it. We don't understand if this person has been world traveled or if they're just from where they're from and this is how they arrive to where they where they are. But for me, those are the things, especially the image and telling the story is very important.
Sheila, I want to talk to you about the same topic and also a little bit about media training, right? I find that you hear artists, they can have a huge song, amazing artists. They can't speak on the interviews. They're acting too cool for school. This is one thing I have, especially I've seen a lot of African artists when they get to America, I don't know what, if they're like, they don't want to seem excited and they're like just too cool. And I'm like, give me some energy. This is entertainment, people. So yeah, talk to me a little bit about the elements that, people need. And like you said, sometimes even if you don't have a publicist, even if you're just an artist in your room at home, what do you need to have? And a little bit about media training.
Cool. I think I'll also echo Richard Dean around images. Getting on certain platforms, if you have the right images, can outweigh the talent you have. So if you try to get that GQ feature or, images matter. So, get them professionally done, invest in that. I would say, if you're trying to, buy all these label brands and those kind of stuff, like money on good PR images will go far. We've seen people send things with like cell phone pictures, things with bad lighting, like we've seen it all. So it's one of those, then it's like, okay, I've got back to the drawing board. So I think, if people can just invest on, good images and what story you're trying to tell. So I think storytelling is quite important. And I think a lot of people don't know what that story is. And I think, it's okay to not know the story, but then don't come to PR expecting to go live tomorrow when that groundwork hasn't been done. So, it's, if you haven't got the tools, I think it's, the bio, PR pictures, elements for what your story is. Some people come from, complete poverty, someone discovered them, someone has a journey. And if someone doesn't know what your journey is, it's hard to then, ask the right questions to bring that, out. So it's good to kind of just understand holistically, even if you don't think it's relevant to your music, to just share, your journey and how you came from where you came to today. I think, Richard D also hit the nail, on the head when she mentioned in terms of, doesn't matter how big you are, where you were or where you're coming from, if you're entering new markets, you started from ground zero. And I think people don't often understand that. So, don't be scared of, the build-up, so if you're in a new territory, just because a platform's a community station or something you believe, is beneath you, doesn't mean it won't open doors. So in South Africa, lots of artists will say it was the community stations that actually helped propel their career because, those kind of people are championing you. They're the ones telling promoters to book you. They're following you. They're making the noise. So I think just, understanding that, every media platform is a building block to where you're trying to go to. You asked something else other than tools.
Okay, I asked about media training.
Oh, yes.
That's something that you provide. How important is that?
So I think media training is very important, but it's one of those where some people are naturally more gifted than others. So I think it takes time in terms of being comfortable and not being in your head so much. So a lot of the stomach blocks we find with some clients is them saying, I don't know if what I'm saying is good enough or sounds good enough. Will people, like what I'm saying? I sound boring. I don't have an exciting story. Or, I feel like I'm saying the same things all the time. It's bit repetitive. I think if you understand that, you are who you are, and your story is authentic to you, you don't need to, add extra sprinkles to it, or whatever the case may be. It's more about just how do you articulate yourself. So for me, it's always about, even if someone asks you something and in your mind it's either yes or no answer, try not to just say yes or no. How do you expand on that? So, oh, do you live in Johannesburg? Yes. No. Where in Johannesburg? Oh, I live in Johannesburg in the, South. It's a very, colorful township. I learned how to play guitar there. You know what I mean? So it's like, what does what does that city mean to you? So you have to learn, how do you, embellish certain things to kind of not make the conversation sound a bit boring. Not many people that come independently, think of the idea of media training. But once you hear one or two clients' interviews, then we can intervene to say, okay, you know what, here's where you could have, added this, or, expanded here, or how you improve that. And there's toolkits, things like, let's say your interview is at 9 a.m. and it's a live interview, you always arrive early. So if it's TV, you want to make sure maybe it's a 30-minute call time ahead of time. You don't want to arrive to an interview and feel flustered and rushing. You want to be able to come in, be calm, know your environment, be able to relax. So you also want to arrive on time. You want to make sure you're looking good. Even if it's radio where you think people won't see you, people take pictures afterwards. These days, people live stream from their, their studios. So always be presentable. I think if you put your best foot forward, it also carries through to how you present yourself. So things like that, don't arrive late, always scrap early. Be well prepared in the sense of, we'll always send people call sheets. So we'll let them know, who's the presenter interviewing you, what's the station name, what it's about, who's the audience. You kind of know what you're kind of getting into. And then kind of some key talking points. So I think for me, it's always writing a client don't be intimidated. This is your interview. So, sometimes people might derail the conversation in other directions. You must know, okay, I'm here to promote 1, 2, 3. So if people are going off course, you have to find a way to kind of bring it back, knowing that I'm here to promote 1, 2, 3. And sometimes people don't like certain questions, and it's always the dating question. And I tell people, think of the fan listening at the end, on the other side. So if someone's asking, oh, so, who are you dating, what's happening, and you want to say like, oh, I don't want to talk about it, you just sound closed off. So even if you genuinely don't want to talk about it, how do you pivot from that? So my thing is, let's say it's a female asking me, who am I dating? I can be like, oh, do you have a brother, or just my DMs are open. This is my handle, and direct people back to your Twitter handle or Instagram. Have fun with it. So for me, it's like, things are uncomfortable, but don't just shut it down and be like, yes or no, or I don't want to talk about it, because you'll see people tweeting, if you don't want to talk about something, why are you there? So, yes, you want to keep your private space, but engage and have a conversation. And I think it requires, just like time and practice, and people just being a bit mature to be able to, handle certain things in a certain way. You won't kind of, have, the best interview on day one. But it is important just to kind of, be mindful that people get to know you from how they see you in the media. So how you carry yourself, how you say certain things, information that, you give off. And people are inspired by your journey. And a lot of people say, they're tired of the interviews, they're saying the same thing each time, but not everyone's listening to every interview you do, so for someone that's new information. So yeah, I think go on and on, but I think just, yeah, it's definitely important to be able to just, amplify your media experience if you're well prepared.
Okay, thank you, Sheila. And I want to welcome our third panelist, Baba Sadiq Abdullahi Abu. Sadiq, welcome.
Thank you, Wamida. So sorry, I had difficulties logging in initially.
Yes,
I thought it was just going to be like a plug and play thing, but I realized
I had a few technical difficulties too, so I'm so glad you made it. Sadiq,
better late than never.
Yes, that's right. That's right. So for those of you who don't know, Sadiq is tuning in. He's also in Accra. And I think your role is interesting. I definitely want to hear from your perspective because you also have a background in media as well.
Right.
I know when I first met you, you were a television producer. And
Yeah.
since then, you have really, really evolved into, just media, on your media mogul path. So I definitely want to applaud you for that. And I think the situation with artists and the entertainment industry in Ghana is really what inspired this topic today. We talked with Richardine and Sheila about some of the elements and things like that. But I want to hear from you, are artists and entertainers in Ghana, do you feel, are they aware of PR and the benefits? Because I feel like sometimes they don't know it exists, or I don't know. So I want to hear from you. You work very closely with everyone here in the industry. So, are they aware of it and its benefits?
Well, they aren't, and in fact, until recently, promotions in general was not a conversation that was had majorly in the industry. Also owing to historically how the conversations in and around promotions has been. Previously when industry, there was a particular period in the industry where there was a lot of talk and advocacy around Payula or Payula, and abolishing Payula and all of that. Now, whilst it was a very, very good campaign to do for industry, one of the things it left in its wake was that the advocates of that kind of created an impression that the power to sort of make an impression or the power to create a resonating effect lied with the industry, and in this case, media mainly. And so it also did create a situation where talents sat back and sort of handed over their life or their destinies to media for them to do whatever. So they would release a song and then sit back, and then, also because they didn't appreciate it. Generally, we recognize that there aren't a lot of talents across the world that are insightful about the role promotions play generally in the advancement of their career. Because there's a certain of a fixation on the creative process, which is creating a song, getting the better song out there, getting it mixed, mastered, what song will give you a hit and all of that. And then they put it out there. And so over time, what we had is that we didn't have like a critical mass of Ghanaian talent really appreciating promotions, and the role PR generally does in promotions and helping to create that brand resonating effect for them. They didn't have that, and then we also got to a point where they didn't get it all, also because they didn't have a template in terms of how their song. Today, when you speak to a lot of Ghanaian talent and ask them, how did this particular song blew or became a hit, it will be difficult for them to walk back on the process in terms of this is what we did, this is what we did strategically, this is what we thought and everything. They don't appreciate it, because other than that, if they do appreciate it, you'll realize that even from the point of creating the song or the product, they'll begin to think around what kind of themes in the song, what kind of instrumentation, what kind of topics, what kind of places am I looking to distribute it, what kind of resonating effect am I looking for, what kind of PR angles am I looking for. These are not things that they talk about or discuss. So there isn't a lot of insight. So you realize that for a lot of the PR specialists that are in town, even those that specialize in entertainment, eventually they end up having to service a lot of brands and organizations that really value promotions and public relations in this case, but a lot of talents do not really get it. But we're seeing a certain gradual shift now, also owing to the fact that now more than ever, a lot more Ghanaian talent are interacting and meeting and being exposed to how things are done because of the presence and existence of global DSPs, global music or entertainment companies. Their processes in the way they go to achieve excellence will it's more or less forcing everybody into line. So you would have, example, in the last few months, the one artist that has gained much more, has gained some traction is Black Sherif. Now, a lot of the activity regarding Black Sherif's promotional power and the effect his song is getting and everything and all of those things was strategic, also owing to Empire presence. So in this case, Empire would have to come out with a promotional strategy in terms of how they will ensure that the song goes and everything. Part of the promotional strategy would obviously include the public relations element of it, i.e. the media rounds, the pitches to the editors, or the editors of playlists, trying to safeguard and control the conversation as much as possible. Myself, in terms of the help that I gave him immediately after the awards, for instance, which was key to blowing out his recent song. Mind you, because there were some recent issues that he had with his previous management, we needed to get involved to organize all the interviews, all the press rounds, and then at the background, control the narrative and control the questioning and everything, all in a bigger scheme, overarching plan to ensure that we control the narrative and are in charge of the narratives that we want to put out there as much as possible. So we're gradually seeing the shift. I'm just hoping that between now and the future, we're gonna see a critical mass of Ghanaian talent and their teams having to now resort to strategic promotional campaigns, which often has PR at the heart of it, because you can't run effective promotional campaigns for any creative product or entertainment product without PR. You would understand the PR builds the brand element of it. The PR is what underscores the values and the brand positioning for the artist, most importantly. And then the other part of it just comes in. So yes, we don't have a critical mass of them appreciating it. A lot of them do not actually even have the insights regarding promotionals generally, but we are gradually seeing the shift, and we're hoping that a lot more people will join the bandwagon, and then this will become a thing in the future.
Thank you for that. I think that is really key. As you said, that there was no template before, right? Like people, it wasn't happening in the market, so they couldn't say, okay, that's how we're supposed to do it. But I could see, even in the past few months with Black Sherry, everybody's like, oh, Nigeria? Oh, we need to go to Nigeria. That's how we gonna blow up? Okay, then everybody's like, let's do that. So I think that template is really key. And you know, like you said, people have to do their homework too. You mentioned, you know, they don't know how the thing became a hit. You know, they're not looking at analytics. They're not, you know what I mean? Like somebody's got to be smart on your team. Like, like we know it's a lot of homeboys and stuff like that, but somebody's got to know this. You got to find somebody on your team who knows that PR is important, who knows that digital is important. And I think that's key. We have a
generally the way.
Yeah, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Generally, the way it should work is that the team lead should have an appreciation of everything. I mean, from the analytics to economics, to understanding the various different markets that you're looking to break into, to understanding the importance of media, having media plugs, connect and everything, even to and understanding at every point in time when there's a newer, impactful platform, keeping the tabs on that, knowing all of these things. The team lead should have an overview of this. It's just unfortunate that a lot of people that are very, very well versed, knowledgeable, and have the insight and experience regarding these things, for some reason in the last few years, began to move out directly from talent management and go for other roles in the industry, right? But we're seeing a shift where now that the big players are coming in, and there's a real need for very, very smart, experienced, knowledgeable people that understand it all and can really guide the careers of these talents. We're gradually seeing them in, also because it's become more rewarding now. Now the issues of documentations and everything has come up, unlike before. Again, like I said, owing to where we are headed, digital is changing a lot of things, and you don't have an option but to ensure that the paperwork and the paper trail is clearly established, because tomorrow a producer who produced your song could easily claim your song on a particular platform because you didn't sign a split sheet with him. You know, so once we're getting to that point, and we're getting to that point where documentation is important, protecting people's IP and copyright is important, the talents themselves are now on the lookout for very smart individuals that really understand it all to guide their careers. But without that, you probably would have to have a PR or media specialist or promotional specialist that understand the space, understand the industry, and can really guide your career in terms of today, even TikTok and engaging TikTok influencers, which is part of the PR process, has become a thing. But like I said, we need to get to the point where we can really track, have a document that spells out the strategy, the timelines, and the various ways of the tactics, the evaluations of it. And then you can always look back at it. And then, of course, once it becomes a thing, everybody would want to replicate it one way or the other. Gradually, we would have that critical mass of talents that would use PR in the ways that we want it.
Thank you. We're going to wrap up. I have a final question that I want everybody to answer, but Sadiq, you can start, and then we'll go to the other speakers. So this Africa Communications Week is really a network of communications and PR people across the world, really, who focuses on Africa. What can we do as media and PR professionals to really help push the industry forward, because it's bubbling, the talent is there. I mean, like, it's just there. Like, everyone, I feel, is like one step away from blowing up, but they do need that structure, and they do need those templates. So if each of you can just quickly, as we wrap up, tell me, what do you feel that we as media and PR professionals can do to really support and push the industry and the artists forward?
Okay. So for me, here are three things that I resorted to do when I realized that thought leadership and information industry was low. That helped to build certain things. I chose to go on the advocacy route. That's one. Punditry. That's two. And then becoming more or less like the big brother of a lot of these talents and helping them to understand some of these things. And some of the campaigns that work, there are case studies to it, and then we use it to inform others as well. So in terms of punditry, in most industries, particularly in industries such as Ghana, where the understanding is low, a lot more knowledgeable technical people tend to shy away from regular industrial conversations, either on radio, on TV, or otherwise. What some of us got involved in was that regular punditry on the most acclaimed shows on radio, on TV, and trying to influence opinions about industry to non-industry players and even industry players. Beyond that as well, actually getting involved, initially starting off by becoming like the big brothers of some of these guys, say, look, you know what, we will guide your careers, we could build things for you, so we began building strategies and things that in the last 1 year, for instance, we've been involved with Camido, for instance, I've been involved in Black Sherif, I've been involved with Kiddy, we're involved with Kwame Eugene, and there's a template regarding most of what we did. Today, if you ask me to recount what was the strategy, what was the real intention behind having to break Kokuda Traveler on the 3 Music Awards platform, using all the stunts that we could pull and everything, I could recount it for you. The objectives is quite stated. The real tactics in terms of what we want to do at what given time is fully stated. The part that Empire was going to play was fully stated in terms of what. So once it worked, you would have Black Sherif consistently coming back for a lot of these directions and advice, because now he's buying into it. So one of the things we have done is, across all the big platforms that we've created, we begin to replicate some of these excellent or more things that we want. So from the 3 Music Awards platform, we replicate it. From the Wilderland platform, we replicate it. From the television channel 3 Music TV, we replicate it. And so gradually, and I had a very interesting call from a competitor, for instance, when they had reached out to a particular talent for something, and they realized that almost all the young talents they were engaging who had been on our platforms kept on asking them for certain things. They called and said, guys, what exactly do you tell these guys? And then it turns out that some of these things that we've been doing has been working. So punditry, becoming big brothers to these guys, more or less like kitchen consultants. You can move or transit from becoming just their kitchen consultant to becoming their paid for consultants on retainer or anything, and then advocacy.
Thank you for that. I don't know if that was our bell cutting us off. They didn't say anything yet, so let's see if we can just get these last question. And thank you so much, Sadiq, for that. Richard Dean, your last words on what we can do as PR and media professionals.
I think that if we can make sure that the artists know to always have some decorum and respect for the people that are like pushing and moving and building for them, will be good. Like that's, and to have a world-class attitude, right? Like they have to know that they are the frontline artists right now, and it's going to make everyone else around the world look at us and be like, okay, is this something that we want to further invest in? Or, you know, this is something that we want to continue to support. So I always say, put your best foot forward, especially when you come into the US. You know how the US is, like, it's we're very polarizing in thought and what we support. So it's like, all right, if we are still building our stories, like, I would just hate for somebody to come and just do something ridiculous. And then it's like everything that we put into this thing is just, you know, is wasted. So that would be it for me.
Thank you. Sheila, close us out, please.
Cool. I think I'd go on the mentorship side of, you know, young publicists. I think a lot of people who are still coming into the industry, you know, are able to help, you know, other artists coming up in the industry as well. There's a huge gap between, you know, the top artists having, you know, the additional support and the people coming up having no one. And also to the artists, I think just do a bit of research. A lot of people, you know, say they want to be like XYZ artists, but they don't know their journey or their story. And these things don't happen overnight. So I think if artists, you know, are able to kind of understand things, but better manage expectations, they'll probably be, you know, more open to kind of going along the journey, understanding that these things don't happen overnight. You know, building a brand takes time. And don't try to copy other people. I think the people who are we seeing today that are standing at the forefront are people who are unique, you know, who are running in their own lanes. So yes, you can kind of see in terms of what other people have done, but be comfortable to just kind of, you know, understand that you are you, you know, and that's going to be your biggest USP going forward.
Wow, thank you guys. Thanks everyone. We have come to the end. I think this was a really amazing discussion. I feel like it's something that needs to be had more and more. This is, you know, an important point right now that we're seeing in the world of African entertainment, because it's being consumed globally, like faster than we could, you know, have ever seen before. And then how we tell those stories, you know, the communications professionals are the ones who we hold the reins of that. So it's an important place to be. And I'm glad that you all joined in this conversation. I hope that you all connect with each other as well, because I'm sure, you know, we can all use each other as resources as we work on projects and campaigns as well. I want to close out. I want to thank everyone for joining us. My name is Mohameda El Muhajir. I am the Director of Strategy for WaxPrint Media. We are a digital marketing and PR agency based in Accra, Ghana. So thanks everyone. Please follow us on social media. We're gonna put everyone's tags so you can make sure that you follow them. Follow us at WaxPrint Media. Follow Africa Comms Week to see the rest of what's happening for the rest of the week with Africa Communications Week. And I wanna thank you and have a great evening.